I want to talk a little bit today about atheism and atheists, and a lot of the misconceptions and understanding really what it means to be an atheist. It gets thrown around. A lot of people just think, oh, I'm an atheist, it means it's not a reality, it's not a concept on this universe, it's not provable, it doesn't exist, I'm an atheist. The concept isn't even in this world, so they just put it off. But really, when you look at the origins of the word atheist, where it comes from, the history, it's quite clear, really, what atheism really is. And just looking at the word atheist comes from the Greek word atheos, and that simply means to deny God. And the definition of deny is to refuse to admit the truth or existence of something. And the secondary definition is refuse to give something requested or desired to someone. So let me give you an example. If I offered you a grape soda and you denied that grape soda, in order for you to deny that grape soda, you would first have to acknowledge that grape soda. So all atheism really is you denying the existence of God. So what does that really mean? You're acknowledging that God's there, but you're simply denying the truth, the faith. You're denying it. That's it. It's there, even as an atheist. You're acknowledging it, but you're just denying it. Simple as that.
Hey folks, how you doing? This is Shock, and you've got to see this. A bunch of you have sent me this clip of Matt Dillahunty, who is the host of the Atheist Experience fiction TV show, and it's a fictional show where they talk about atheism. And you see right behind Matt is a picture of the spaghetti monster. They actually believe that the spaghetti monster exists. Although I have some bad news. I had the spaghetti monster for dinner tonight, and he had a aftertaste of bitterness, foolishness, and hatred, and stupidity. But speaking of that, I want to show you a video. Don't forget to check out this one titled Matt Dillahunty Owned and Exposed here. But a lot of you have said, oh my gosh, Matt contradicts himself a lot. And he is an atheist, so we do know that atheism contradicts itself. So I'm going to show you where Matt says the only thing that's important to him is truth, right? But then in this video here, titled Atheist Matt Dillahunty Loses Debate Says He Doesn't Know, click right below this video or click the annotation and you're going to see this video where he says that he doesn't know if truth endures. So in other words, he doesn't know if truth is enduring, yet he says the only thing that matters to him is truth. Yet he doesn't know about truth. He doesn't even know if truth endures. So first we're going to go to the clip where he says the only thing that matters to him, he doesn't give a, well, I'll let him say it, but he basically says he doesn't care what anyone else says, he just cares about truth, right? Fine. But then here he admits that he doesn't know if truth is enduring. In other words, to him, truth doesn't last. It just changes. It's, in his opinion, he says he doesn't know about truth. You're going to hear the guy debating him, and by the way, Matt lost this debate. The guy asked him in debate, is truth enduring? Now, if Matt says truth is important to him, then he should say yes, truth is enduring. But as an atheist, he can't say truth is enduring because atheism is a lie. It has nothing to do with truth. So first we're going to hear him say that the only thing that matters to him is truth, and then click right below here and watch the video, which I'm going to play you a clip here, where he says he doesn't know about truth. So watch. Listen closely. Let me turn the volume up.
I could give a damn what most people believe. I only care about what's actually true. And to the extent that most people believe something and it turns out to be right, it's just as coincidental as the ones where the minority believes it and it turned out to be right.
Okay, so he says he just cares about truth, right? He doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks, according to him. But now here, when he's asked about truth, he says he doesn't know about truth. Watch this.
Is truth enduring? Is there a category of enduring truth? I don't know.
Did you hear that? He said he doesn't know. So here he says truth is important. That's all he cares about, right? When he says he don't give a damn of what other people think. But here he says he doesn't know about truth. Matt has a split personality. Here he doesn't know about truth. Here he says truth is all that matters. There's two different people here, but it's the same person contradicting themselves. Click right below this video and watch the video where he loses the debate, where he says he doesn't know if truth endures, yet in this video he's saying that's all he cares about is truth. Yet here he contradicts himself and says, let me play it again.
He doesn't know. This is so pathetic. What?
There's physical, conceptual, and truth. Not really, not as an exit thing. Is truth enduring? Is there a category of enduring truth? I don't know.
Now,
Did you see that? This is not edited. He said he doesn't know.
Now, so we got a problem here, guys. Atheism causes madness. You have him here saying he doesn't know about truth. And over here he said that's all that's important to him. Is truth enduring? I don't know, he says. Over here, though, he says he doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks. He just cares about truth. But yet over here he says he doesn't know about truth. He's contradicting himself. Here he doesn't know. Here he says that's all he cares about. So he cares about something that he doesn't know about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is madness. This is atheism in its purest form. Don't forget to click below here and you could hear him say he does not know. Guys, look. Atheism will turn your world upside down. It is madness in its purest form.
You know, there's been this thing quite often. I've done this show for I don't know how many years now, 7 or
a lot,
whatever, and we get the same questions over and over again. And I don't mind addressing some of the issues over and over. You know, we've hit Pascal's wager and
sure.
The anthropic principle and all kinds of things constantly. One thing that's kind of been a curiosity for me, the people who have, I'm somebody who wants to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. I want to have beliefs that are justified and supported by evidence and sound arguments. And yet there are some people who begin by presenting their position as, I believe in God, and here's my reasons why, as if they can actually make the case, as if they're going to present evidence and argument for it. And when the arguments are countered and when the evidence is refuted, they kind of push back to this, well, I just believe anyway, and you have to take it on faith. The arguments that end there, I don't know that we've accomplished very much about learning why it is that you actually believe. And there's the second subset of people that intrigue me are the ones who say, I believe in a God, but I don't believe this is anything that could be demonstrated. I couldn't prove it to anybody. I just believe it. And to me, those people are just admitting that they believe something without any good reason.
Of course.
And in that case, if you're one of those people, my question then would be, why? Why are you willing to believe something? And do you actually believe, or are you just saying you believe? Kind of like saying, well, I know there's no good reason to think that I'm going to win the lottery, but I really believe I'm going to win it this time. I think that's kind of like just positive talk. It's lip service as opposed to actually believing.
You know, I might actually be able to answer that question just from my past theistic position, because I was so heavily indoctrinated as a fundamentalist that there's a lot of people that write to our list and they say that, you know, their beliefs kind of crumbled when their religion crumbled. But I wasn't like that. When my religion fell, I thought my religion was wrong. God exists, but they're not right about it. And so I kind of went on this quest trying to figure out what was right about God. And it didn't even occur to me to think that that belief should be challenged. It just was never challenged, because that to me was sort of like a foundational thing. And so I was willing to say the Bible, you know, I found out the Bible wasn't correct. I found out these, you know, the doctrines that are flowing from this, I have no reason to believe them. You know, I'm not, the whole Jesus thing, I, you know, don't even know that that wasn't just a person. But I need to know, what is this God? And so I spent probably the next decade searching for God until I finally, you know, examined. It took me that long to figure out that what I was calling God was really nothing more than just everything.
No, and I can understand that, but if somebody had asked you...
Yeah, if you had asked me during that time, do you believe in God? I would have said yes. And if you'd asked me why, I'd have been like, I'm not I wouldn't have known. It would have been, the closest I could have described it would have been a feeling. And I think it's instilled through indoctrination into people when they're young that this exists. And so you don't even question it. It's almost like you feel you have a soul and you feel this God. And so you just go on those feelings and you're trusting those feelings because you're thinking to yourself, that's all you've ever been taught to call them. And so it doesn't even cross your mind to think that those feelings should be questioned and that might not be God and soul.
So what's the impetus for tipping over? Is it simply education about
Sadly, for me,
standards?
it was like 10 years of searching. I mean, I don't know what would have happened in that time if someone would have confronted me like in the way we do on this program. Mm-hmm. I think it might have ended in the frustrating conversation where I end up saying, I just don't know, I just feel it. I think that would have been the best you would have gotten at that point.
Well, I mean, there's no denying that now, having worked with you for a number of years here, you have as good or better a grasp on standards of evidence and how we go about discerning reality, to where I don't think you could ever hold that kind of position again on any subject.
Sure.
So there's some fundamental skeptical, critical thinking, evidence-based bit of knowledge or heuristic that you didn't have before that you have now. And I don't know if that kind of came for you as more of a revelation or if this was just little pieces along that decade.
I think it was a couple things. I think that the fundamentalist church kind of taught the concept of science as an authoritarian thing, just like the church. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of taught that you didn't need to really you just learn what they teach you in school about science, but you don't know. That's just those scientists, and they don't have reason. They're just making this stuff up, and yeah. And so you're kind of taught that science is looked at as authoritarian, and it's the top-down thing, just like religion. Mm-hmm. And that's how you view it. And you don't. And so during the 10 years that I was searching, I started to figure out that I could actually look this information up, I could study it, I could learn it, and that it wasn't just sort of above me in a way that I could never understand it or never grasp it or get these reasons. And so the more I started to learn about things, the tough thing I also had to do was to ask myself, what am I calling God? Like, what am I labeling God? Like, what is it? If it's an existent thing, what is it? And so there were these two things happening where I was like, this is the kind of things that I'm attributing to God. This is how I'm looking at God. This is what I'm thinking of God. And it was very hard just to try to get some sort of focus on what do I even mean by that word.
Yep. It's one of the reasons why in a lot of these discussions, one of the best things we can do right off the bat, in addition to telling us, what you believe and why, but to define the what. Don't just say, I believe in God and here's why. I want to know what you mean by God. Because,
and not just what you mean, but I mean specifically, if you're claiming it's existent, what are you pointing at? Like, what existent thing do you think you're labeling as God? Like, what is it that you look at when you're saying God? What are you meaning?
Yeah. Well, we've got calls lined up. Maybe we'll get into some of these questions more. I have no idea. I haven't looked yet to see who's actually called in or what they're going to talk about. As a reminder, anybody who doesn't get through on the phone today or doesn't want to can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself and everybody involved in the show. We get so much email we can't possibly answer all of it. We try to do the best job we can and read as much of it and take the questions and criticisms to heart. Some discussions and emails tend to go on, like I'll get into a conversation with somebody in email and it'll go on for 8 or 9 back and forth lengthy responses. And the one thing I'd like people to understand is that if at some point the conversation just ends, it's probably because I have a backlog of 600 or 700 emails right now. But all
right. My name is Sally Hasslinger, and I'm a professor of philosophy at MIT. Today we're going to discuss an argument in favor of atheism, in favor of the belief that God doesn't exist. Let's start with some definitions. Theism, that's the belief that God exists. So atheism, the belief that God doesn't exist. Rational theism is one form of theism. It's the belief that there are evidential reasons to believe that God exists. Now, irrational theism is the belief in God without evidence. There are plenty of people who are irrational theists because they believe in God based on faith. Faith is often thought to be believing something in spite of the fact that you don't have evidence for it. And it's completely common for people to believe things without evidence, right? We believe things all the time based on wishful thinking. We believe it because it's just in the air or it's convenient for us to believe it. It makes us happy for us to believe it. All those sorts of things. But we're talking here about evidence, where evidence is some information that lends credibility to the claim in the sense that it's more likely to be true if you have the evidence. Okay, so irrational theism, as I said, is a common position, but we're not really going to talk very much about it today. Irrational theism is the belief in God in spite of evidential reasons supporting atheism. Notice that this is quite different from irrational theism. The belief in God without evidence, as mentioned, could be just on the basis of a lack of evidence. But irrational theism is when you hold belief in God, that is, when you hold theism, but there are clear supporting reasons for the opposing view, that is, for atheism. Now that's problematic, and we're going to look a little bit further about why it's problematic. Let's move on to a few more definitions so that we're clear what we're talking about. Contradiction. What is a contradiction? A contradiction is when you have a set of beliefs that are not possibly true together. So a set of beliefs is contradictory if and only if it's not possible for all of them to be true. Here's a simple example. Today is Monday. It's not the case that today is Monday. Those can't both be true together. Now, we're making an assumption, namely that we're talking about right here, right now. We're not talking about something on the other side of the date line. Considering today is Monday and it's not today is Monday, that's a contradiction. Both of them can't be true. So if you believe both of them, then you're believing a contradiction. Now, it's not necessarily the case that a contradiction needs to involve only two statements. It can involve three statements. So, all birds can fly. Penguins are birds. Penguins can fly. Not all of them can be true together, right? If you hold what it is to fly stable, if you hold what it is to be a bird stable, then you can't hold all these together and have just true beliefs. One of them has got to be false. Now you could say, well, maybe it's not the case that all birds can fly. Or maybe it's not the case that penguins are birds. Or maybe you could come up with a modification of what it is to fly so that penguins can fly. They're really good underwater, for example. You watch them underwater, they look like they're flying. But that's not really flying. So you can't hold all of these beliefs. You have to figure out which one you're going to give up. Likewise, today is Monday, and it's not the case that today is Monday. You need to give one up. Okay, now why do you have to give one up? Some people say, wait, we believe in contradictions all the time. It's just not obvious that we believe in contradictions. Well, that's true. We probably do have contradictory beliefs. But it's not good to have contradictory beliefs, and we want to get rid of our contradictory beliefs. Now, there are a couple of reasons why. First of all, it's really good to have true beliefs. You don't want to go around the world having false beliefs because it gets you into trouble. So if I believe that there's no wall here, and I go walking into the wall, then that's not so good. False beliefs can get you into trouble in that way. They can lead you into problematic circumstances that you'd probably best not be in. So holding beliefs that are false is problematic, and if you hold contradictory beliefs, you know one of them has got to be false, and that's bad. Another thing is coherent action. Having contradictory beliefs makes it difficult to act coherently. Look at this one. Today is Monday, and it's not the case that today is Monday. Suppose you have a dentist appointment on Monday. What do? Do you go or not? You both believe that it is and it isn't Monday, so what are you going to do? It's hard to act coherently and act in a sensible way to fulfill your obligations, etc. Since one of the beliefs you hold has got to be false, and you can't act on two contradictory beliefs, you can't really act coherently. So we're talking about whether God exists and evidence for and against the existence of God. Now, there are many different conceptions of God or gods. I'm not trying to adjudicate what's the right or best conception of God, but there's a particular standard definition in the West that God is an all-perfect being. A being at least who has these three features. A God is all-knowing, which is to be omniscient, all-powerful, which is to be omnipotent, and to be wholly good, or omnibenevolent. So this being is perfect, is omniscient, omnipotent, and wholly good, or omnibenevolent. We're going to call the combination of these features OO, O-O-O, because they're pretty good OO features. Let's go ahead and now look at the argument that suggests that atheism is the rational view to hold, the one that there's the greatest evidence to believe. Here's the first premise. If God exists, he, she, or it would be ooh. Now I use he, she, or it because of course I don't know whether there's a God, and if there is, whether it's a he, she, or it. Or at least for the purposes of the discussion, we're not going to assume anything like that. Okay, so that's the first premise. Second, if an ooh God exists, there would be no evil. Well, why is that? Well, if a God were all-knowing, then that God would know when evil was going to occur, or that it occurred, would have the power to make it not occur, and is wholly good, so would also have the motivation to make it not occur. So this combination of omniscience, omnipotence, and omnibenevolence suggests that if a God were truly ooh, there would be no evil. We assume for the purposes of argument that God exists, and we conclude, then, there is no evil. So if God exists, he, she, or it would be ooh. If an ooh God exists, there would be no evil. God exists, so there is no evil. The problem is, there is evil. Well, at least it seems there's evil. That might be one of the questions that comes up when we consider objections to the argument. It certainly appears that there's evil. Lynching, terrorism, the death of innocent babies. So for the moment we're going to say there is evil. But look, there is no evil, there is evil, this is a contradiction. And so we have to reject one of these premises. Well, this one, that God is ooh, that one is hard to reject because that's just how we've defined what God is. This one, it seems straightforward. And so once we assume God exists, and we assume that there is evil in the world, which is hard to deny, we get a contradiction. So we have to reject something. And so the thing that's most likely to be false, according to the argument, is number 3, that God exists. So we conclude that God does not exist. Now this argument is a little bit truncated, as any argument is. It relies on 2 further assumptions. First, a wholly good thing always eliminates evil as far as it can. And second, that there are no limits to what an omnipotent thing can do. But these just seem to be part of the definition of all-knowing, all-powerful, and wholly good. It's just true by definition. So here's a way to think about it. If we assume a certain kind of God, an ooh God, and we really take seriously the perfection of that God, all-knowing, all-powerful, omnibenevolent, then once we assume that kind of God and that there exists some evil in the world, then we've got a contradiction. So the theist is left with this position. Either the theist has to say there is no evil in the world, or the theist has to give up one of these features of their God. Those are your 2 options. Neither of them look very appealing. And so now we're in a position to say, if you don't want to do that, you are an irrational theist, that there is compelling evidence that God does not exist. God of this ooh kind does not exist, and yet you believe anyway. That is to say, you believe a contradiction. You believe that there is evil and there is no evil. You believe there is this kind of God, there isn't this kind of God. We saw before that belief in contradictions is a bad thing, and you ought to avoid it wherever you can. And so this is the argument that you should not be a theist, because irrational theism is not an acceptable form of theism.
Won't you listen to reason?
We got Chris here in Austin. Chris?
Hello?
Oh, hey, yeah, I would like to know, how do you know God isn't real?
Well, have you demonstrated that he is?
Well, I mean, in Romans chapter 1, verse 20, it says...
Captain Kirk said, what does God need with a spaceship?
Yeah.
Quoting the Bible's not going to get you anywhere.
Human.
Quoting,
or an alien.
Quoting the Bible's not going to get...
He was the creation. He wasn't the creator.
Quoting the Bible's not going to get you anywhere because you haven't demonstrated why anybody should consider the Bible to be true or authoritative. Why should I care what Romans says? It was written by probably Paul. What do I care what it says?
Why do you get so offended?
I'm not offended. I'm asking a question. See, because we had this conversation a little while ago where the guy assumed that atheism was this assertion that God doesn't exist, and then with a couple minutes left in the show, we get you calling in to say, how do you know God isn't real? when I've already explained that that's not what atheists are asserting? And then when I ask you, or when Jen asks you to clarify it, you start quoting Bible verses as if that should carry any weight. I'm asking, why should that carry any weight? What difference does it make what the Bible says?
Because it's true.
How do you know?
How do you know?
Because I just do. It's by faith.
You just, okay.
Okay.
How do you know how you know the Quran isn't? Is that just by faith too?
Because it's not based on a God. It's based on...
It's based on the same God you worship.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It absolutely is.
If
Have you read?
that were the case, then...
Do you not know the story of Isaac and Ishmael? You haven't read your Bible, have you? That's the problem.
Okay,
go read it, and you'll free yourself. Go read it and actually study, because those the three.
Then how do we all happen to be? We can't just come from nothing.
Who said we did?
Who said we did?
I came from my parents. I came from my parents. I'm assuming that you probably did.
And the universe.
We know how the Earth formed. It's part of where we have a really good idea as a part of the accretion disk from when the sun was formed.
And how was the sun born?
The sun was formed by gravity acting on particles. You can go. You can go study all of this in science classrooms.
There could have just been nothing at all. There didn't have to be.
Could there get?
There didn't have to be an Earth. There didn't have to be a moon.
Correct.
There didn't have to be stars.
You're right.
Correct.
You know, so that's just proving my point.
No, it's not proving your point.
It's proving your ignorance of basic science.
I think y'all are ignorant because we didn't have.
Why? Because we understand the science and you don't?
I agree with you. We didn't have to be here at all.
Yeah. All right then.
I agree. We didn't have to be here. Fortunately, the laws of the universe were such that physics prompted things to happen in such a way that we are the current state of life on this planet.
Yeah, but what's physics?
Wow.
There didn't even have to be physics.
Okay.
There didn't have to be any of that.
Just Wikipedia. I mean, pick up a dictionary. You know, study.
Right.
It's God.
Physics is God.
How do you know it's God?
Yeah.
Because there has to be a greater being than all of us.
Why?
Why?
So, because there just has to.
No.
That's not an answer. Because there just has to is not an answer. That is an argument from ignorance. It's really, you're saying because I can't think. Because you're saying because I can't think of any better answer.
Truth.
You're saying because I can't think of any better answer.
How do you know the physics is true?
Because it's demonstrable.
Yeah.
This is going to drop. If I let go of it, I won't because I don't want to break it. It's going to drop at 9.8 meters per second squared. Shut the hell up. We know physics is true because it is, because it's demonstrable, because it is investigatable by science, and because the results are consistent and it can be reproduced by anybody. And we know that there's a pretty good chance, though not absolutely, that we'll be back again next week. Thanks everybody for tuning into the short show. We'll be back at 4:30 next week. Bye-bye.
And Chris knows physics is true, too.
Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
Go to Trevor in Washington.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
You can hear me, that's cool.
Makes the show easier.
Yeah, got some biochemical challenges for you guys. You guys like working in the science realm. I hope one of you guys has.
Why would you call and challenge us on biochemistry? Are we biochemists?
I don't like working in the realm of science. If I did, I would work in the realm of science, but I don't.
And I didn't really start doing the show.
You guys need an alternative to God. You guys need some reason that everything came about. Right?
What? Wait, what? You don't need an alternative to something that doesn't have a basis in itself.
Well, you guys need...
Do I need an alternative to fairies? I mean...
There's a Matt there at least believes in evolution.
Sorry, what?
He says you believe in evolution.
Of course, because I'm not,
All right, I have challenges for evolution if you want to hear them.
Not really. Okay, see, you seem to not understand that this is irrelevant to whether or not a God exists. You could challenge evolution. You could prove evolution false right now, and it doesn't add one bit of credibility to the claim that a God exists.
Well, everything has to be here for some reason, and if evolution isn't true, there's really no other reason for everything.
That's called an argument from ignorance.
And if there would be no other reason, then the answer would be there is no reason for all of this. It wouldn't be God.
Yeah, you have to actually provide evidence for your claim. Meanwhile, when it comes to evolution, we're talking about something that is actually backed up by evidence. And if you
you're not seeming to
if you have
let me question it, so you guys are ignoring me here.
Because it's irrelevant.
I'm happy to ignore you if that's what you want to happen. My point that I'm trying to make here is that you're calling an atheist call-in show to offer challenges to evolution, and I don't think
there would be nearly as much atheism if evolution was not
true.
But what you're saying, though, is that more people would be inclined to accept reasonable fallacies, or I guess reasoning fallacies, which may be accurate, but it certainly doesn't add anything to the claim that God is responsible for any of this. It's just simply saying that people would be tricked by a fallacy. I mean, and they probably would be, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't make it an ounce more valid.
Well, evolution is a fallacy, and I used to believe it. I actually lost.
But it has nothing to do with
my
God.
faith in God because of evolution.
That's up to you. I mean, that's ridiculous.
First of all,
you can say it's not relevant.
First of all, if you lost all of your faith in God because of evolution, you had bad reasons.
Yes.
It's, the fact that you believe something for bad reasons or stop believing something for bad reasons doesn't say one bit about whether or not it's actually true. And second of all, I'm assuming that you're going to say that you've since discovered that evolution is false, which means that your ability to process information and determine what's believable is seriously flawed, and you are flip-flopping on big questions, all based on fallacies.
I think you guys have a funny thing going here that kind of twists the argument to avoid things you know you can't win.
The opposite. The opposite of God is not evolution. Okay.
No, but you do need a solution.
No, you don't.
All this
no,
stuff exists.
You don't.
We are not exactly simple beings. You might see an arm and a leg, but it's a little more complicated.
You're on hold. There must be some explanation, but the absence of an explanation does not mean that God is true. And just because we don't believe in God does not mean that we must currently have an explanation. Fortunately, we do, because evolution is a fact.
Okay, I used to think that. I used to be correct. I haven't met anyone that was more into evolution than I was. Well, but I disbelieve evolution currently.
Fine.
Continue to
but that's not a reason to believe in God.
Okay, why don't you
no,
believe?
It's not.
Why don't you
Thank
believe?
You. He just
why
said
don't
it's
you
not.
believe that? Okay, why don't you believe that evolutionary theory, that the natural selection? Well, first of all, let me ask you this, because you say you used to believe in evolution. Evolution is a fact. It's an observed fact, and then there is the theory of evolution by natural selection. Do you disbelieve both of them?
I believe there is some microevolution. Anyone can see that. I'm not stupid. But looking at it from biology, looking at the biology of it, it's just ridiculous to think that a single cell ever could have existed and just come about.
And is this the consensus of biologists?
No. Because now you're challenging not evolution, but abiogenesis.
Abiogenesis
is
the root of evolution. It's the beginning.
You know what? You say you never met anybody who was more into evolution than you. Maybe you should go out and meet some of those people, because they represent the bulk of scientists who are actually working in this field and understand it.
You know what? I understand evolution.
Not if your challenge is that you simply don't believe abiogenesis. If that's your reason for dropping all of the observations, the facts about change in species, then you don't understand what you're talking about.
You have to get that first cell.
Yeah.
And I also have reasons to doubt every other point of evolution, or most of them, and they're very sound and logical reasons.
Okay, where's your Nobel Prize?
It's not a joke.
I don't need one.
Oh, but I do.
Yes.
Because you're claiming that you have information that would turn all of biological theory on its head.
How about you let me say it and you decide for yourself?
Sure.
I'm not a biologist, but
I'll give you 60 seconds. Go.
Oh yeah, let's answer the hardest questions in the world in 60 seconds.
I could hang up if you'd prefer.
Scientific.
I'm just amazed we have a guy on the phone who can answer the hardest questions in the world.
Bye. It's not my job to waste as much time on the show as you would like us to waste. I'm sorry that your personal opinions don't match with the established science, but the armchair evolution denier who thinks that he's found the arguments that trump all of evolution, who calls into an atheist show and even after being told that it's irrelevant to the subject of this show, continues on, is an idiot. Why haven't you published? Oh, the scientific community just won't listen to you. Because you're an idiot! How hard was that? We tried to say it wasn't. Anyway, even if you could disprove evolution, it wouldn't prove your God, which means all of your position is based on a fallacy. But the fact that you can sit there and say, oh, I used to be really into evolution, and I know all about evolution, and now I just can't believe it, and I'd like to give you my reasons. Don't.
You know, but not even looking at the argument from ignorance, it gives people such a problem, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But even without that, all you have to do is say, there are people who believe in God who believe in evolution. There are people who believe in God who do not believe in evolution. Therefore, whether or not you believe in God is irrelevant to whether or not you believe in evolution. I don't know how much more clear it can be than that.
Yeah, and the fact is, you got him to say that at one point. That disproving evolution wouldn't say anything at all about God existing.
Right. So it's irrelevant.
You know, and
it's only relevant when you will not let go of the argument from ignorance fallacy, and you don't. If you think that evolution has to be wrong in order for your God to be right, and you don't think that you need to demonstrate why your God is right, why that idea about your God is right, then suddenly this becomes necessary. But you have to buy into a fallacy, first of all. And then you have to sit there and say that you know more about biology than biologists. And I don't know why you think that's true.
You know, we've taken...
And asking us, I mean, you're not, if you want to issue a challenge to biology, you know who you need to talk to, right? And it's not atheists, it's biologists.
There's a little symbol down there in the lower corner right here, the atheist experience. Now, we've talked about evolution before. We've talked about it again. The thing is, I don't want to get... Here's what happens. You have apologists, in particular, who run around thinking that if they can trump random atheist X on subject Y, they can then pimp this out to the believers of, look, I stumped the atheist and therefore God, which is just another fallacy. Because I'm not a biologist, so even if I didn't have any responses to your, accusations or your objections to evolution, it wouldn't mean a thing. Now, if you'd like, since I hung up on you, and I'm sure that your panties are in a twist over that, if you'd like to call back, I could probably get PZ Myers to agree to call in or sit in on the show at some point in the future, and then you could pose your objections to biology to him until his head exploded and he went off. Because he's actually a biologist. But we're going to move on.
Some of you don't want to hear this, but you need to hear this. You live in an age in which you are told you are basically a good person. God is only love. There is no wrath. He has no enemies. That's not true. That's not true. It doesn't end well for Haman. It doesn't end, and he lived happily ever after, and he had a change of heart, and all went well. And for some of you, that is your fate at this moment. It's not going to end well for you. You should know that you will be standing in the presence of a great king, and he will have a perfect wrath, and you should be terrified. And I could just hear the objection. I don't believe in hell. Dear friend, you will. You will. And for some of you, you feel no sense of urgency because your life is frankly going quite well. Haman's was going quite well until the day before. Second most powerful man on the earth, rich, famous, bowed down to by the multitudes, access to the king, given full right to make legal decisions and even take human life. We've even learned that he has friends, which is a miracle, and a wife who talks to him. His life is going very well. And then one day, it flips upside down. And chapters 6 and 7 are two of the most ironic, surprising, shocking chapters of the whole Bible. And for some of you, your life is like that. Everything will be fine until you're in the presence of the king and his wrath burns against you and you are filled with terror.
For the people who, accept the Bible, as evidently most of the Republican candidates do based on that debate question, why don't you see miracles anymore? I mean, you take a look according to the Bible. I mean, you had the Israelites had pillars of smoke and fire parting the seas. They were fed manna from heaven and plagues and pestilence. And then Jesus walks on water and turns water to wine and raises the dead. And now
it just takes one guy 3 days lost in the woods with his kids to get found.
Yeah.
That constitutes today's miracles. It's really downgraded.
Yeah. Ooh, I found my car keys. It's a miracle. Please. There's this whole why won't God heal amputees question, which has come up, and it's a great website to visit, whywon'tgodhealamputees.com. And I think it's also a part of godimaginary.com. You don't see miracles like that anymore. And why? Why is it that this generation, or that every generation that we have good historical data on, should be exempted from the type of evidence that the previous generations got? I mean, I think the whole God thing would be much more plausible if I saw dead people raised. I think the whole God thing would be much more plausible if, I could cut off my finger and God could grow it back, or cure me of leprosy. It'd be much more plausible if I saw dead people getting up out of their graves and walking around. It doesn't necessarily prove a God, but at least it opens the door to certain possibilities that are currently closed because there's no reliable evidence that anything even remotely like that has ever occurred. All we have are stories and anecdotes. It's damned peculiar that the miracles seem to stop just about the time that we developed the ability to investigate, report, and record these things for posterity. All we get are these mythological. How is Jesus walking on water any different from Atlas holding up the earth?
Yeah. Or Muhammad flying to Mecca on the magic winged being.
I mean, it's mythology in every sense, and if you don't think so, the burden of proof is on you. You're the one who's claiming that there's something supernatural to this. And I'd really love to know if you believe that a God exists and he used to do miracles, but he doesn't now, I'd love to hear why.
Hi guys. I'm going to answer a few questions that people have asked me. Does God exist? Yes. Sorry. Atheist? Sorry. From your perspective, it's okay if they don't. I'm not telling you must believe he does. But yes, God exists. Source energy does exist, and it does have a consciousness, it does have an awareness, and that's my truth. If you feel that he doesn't and he's an atheist, I'm not going to say you're wrong, because it's not wrong for you in this lifetime to feel that. You're going to learn everything in your lifetime that you were meant to, and it's no threat. There is no hell. There is no, if you don't believe in me, I will burn you forever, okay? That doesn't exist. All those things, and I think the biggest thing most atheists have a problem with isn't the idea of a God, it's the idea of religions. A lot of people are into science, and they believe in science, but they don't believe in spiritual matters. There's no reason these two things have to fight each other. I'm huge into science, okay? Quantum mechanics explains the universe. People in religion, they say they don't believe in evolution. My point to them is, has it ever dawned on you that evolution is the method and the tool of God? That's how He creates. Now, again, you're free to believe what you want. And it doesn't change my feeling towards anybody one iota if they're an atheist or a Buddhist, a Hindu or Christian or anything else, okay? I don't judge you based on that at all, okay? Because that's just not the way I believe that things should be, you know? I believe in the great I Am. I believe He's every single one of us. Here's a good one for you. You're watching me on YouTube. I wanted to challenge you to do something. Expand your awareness with this little exercise. Take 1 hour and just flip through random YouTube channels, and every video you watch, realize it was you who made it. For we are all one being. There's only one awareness. Non-linear time. Let me explain that all one awareness thing real quick. Works like this. If you had a light bulb in your hand here, and a light bulb in your hand here, okay, and only one light bulb could be on at a time. On, off, on, off. But you did it really fast, on, they would both appear to be on. God is you. God is me. God is everything that has any awareness. And just in case people don't know, this blade of grass has awareness. It's not sad that I just picked it because it's serving a great purpose and it knows that. Everything that is makes up God because He created everything from Himself. Everything is made out of source energy. Anyway, take an hour, watch YouTube, even watch some things that you don't like, that you have judgment against. Put yourself literally in their shoes. YouTube, it's you, every person on it, even me. In non-linear time, God is every one of us, one at a time, all stacked up through infinity, beginning and end, and looping back to the beginning again. So if you're looking for God, look within your heart yourself. You are a reflection of that divinity, not a little tiny piece. You're it. You know, people wonder, why doesn't God intervene? Okay, against what? Himself? That's called free will. Okay, He's experiencing Himself subjectively through all of us. You want God to intervene? Then you intervene. You're Him. Tag, you're it. You want to change the world to be a better place? Be the change you want it to be a better place. That's how God intervenes. Or the I Am, or Source, or whatever you want to call it. So, people who call me an atheist, you are the furthest kind of wrong there is. And that one, you know, like I said, I don't blame anybody. But it's just totally inaccurate. I have total faith in the I Am. Anyway, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and go from now, because between this felt hat and these sweatpants and this black shirt, it's getting a little toasty out here. Namaste. That actually means, for those who don't know, a loose translation is that I recognize the divinity in you as the divinity in me. I love you all. Take care.
This issue is about religious neutrality from the government. The government says that the government is not allowed to pick sides and say that one religious belief or philosophy
if you read the Constitution, it says the government cannot promote a religion.
No, it says the Congress shall not establish any laws respecting an establishment of religion.
A religion,
yes,
not a philosophy. Okay?
So you wouldn't have a problem then with the government of the United States establishing atheism, because that's also a philosophy. That would be fair for you.
Establishing it? What does that mean?
So we'll put "In God We Don't Trust" on all the points.
You can put your winter solstice
One nation under no God in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you wanted to go down to Albany, go up to Albany, New York, and put a happy winter solstice on Andrew Cuomo's office door, I got no problem with it.
Yeah, you would. I think you would.
No. Well,
but I wouldn't.
Don't tell me what I think. When I said I didn't have a problem, I don't have a problem.
Sir,
got it,
sir? If you had you would have a problem with it.
No, I would not.
Challenging you on that, you would.
Challenging?
I'm challenging you on it. Yeah, I do know you. I watch your show. Look,
that's ridiculous.
And it wouldn't be right either. It wouldn't be right either, because the governor is not in the position of promoting
solstice
atheism.
Is not a religion.
No,
it's a holiday. If he wants to put winter solstice up on his office door, I got no problem.
Actually, it's a celestial event, and you're right. It would be secular. But if you put up there, "In God We Do Not Trust."
I'm sorry. I just said Jesus Christ. That's a religious. He was a man. Now, Christmas tree is a secular symbol. It's a secular symbol. It has nothing to do with Christianity.
What's that word? What's that first word?
Secular symbol.
Christmas.
A Christmas tree.
Christmas is a Christmas tree.
Now
look.
This is so unreasonable. You are so unreasonable.
No, it's not unreasonable.
It is frightening.
I'm not unreasonable at all.
You absolutely are.
The government has to be fair. The government has to not take sides. Everybody is equal. Everybody has the same rights. It doesn't matter.
It's a federal holiday. Why don't you get off your butt and get it revoked? And see how far you go. Of course you don't, because your view is insane.
No, it's not.
You can celebrate Christmas without being a Christian.
Actually, you can celebrate Christmas without being a Christian by force, because you can't go to work, you can't get your mail, you can't go to the bank.
You can't go to work?
No, you can't.
You can't?
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
Oh, really? Are you going to be working on Christmas?
I don't work on Christmas.
99% of the country doesn't either, because it's a federal holiday, which is illegal.
And your merry band of fascists.
Fascists.
Yeah.
Fascists.
You get it revoked.
You call me a fascist.
Absolutely.
I am a patriot, sir. I am a patriot who's taking the craziest notion that everybody in this country is equal and that the government has to treat everybody fairly.
Therefore, they should banish Christmas trees.
I did not say banish Christmas trees. I said
from the public square. That's what you do. That's what you want.
That's not what I do. Stop telling me what I do.
The record shows
equality. We demand equality from the government, and it's our constitutional right, and you should be demanding it along with me.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning.
How are you guys doing today?
Excellent.
That's good. Okay, I'll start here. You guys are atheists, right?
Correct.
Which is to say that you believe there is, declaratively, you say there is no God, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask you a couple questions, really. Basically, I could address it to the individual in the middle, I guess, one guy. My first question would be, as an atheist, sir, do you know everything in the universe? Do you know everything there is to know in the universe?
No, I don't.
Okay. I guess you could put, if you were to put a percentage on it, would you say that you maybe know 1% of the things of everything there is to know in the universe? I mean, would that be a fair statement to you? I mean, with the whole solar system, the whole universe, everything there is to know.
It's hard to answer that, because if you don't know everything there is to know, then you don't know how much of a percentage you actually do know.
That's actually true, but by looking at the vastness of the universe, and you know, with you could say even the things here on Earth, geology, physics, mathematics, Do you know everything about everything? I mean, what would you put your percentage as in terms of all there is to know?
We'll go with your percent. I have no problem with you putting 1% figure on that.
Right. You know, in my opinion, I think that might be somewhat of an arrogant figure for someone to say that they actually know 1% of everything.
Okay, I agree with that.
But anyway, well then, sir, if that's true, that you really only know a small fragment of what it is that is to be known, how is it that one could declaratively say by that information that there is no God, and hence prove a universal negative, which is impossible?
You're absolutely right. We're not out there to prove. I can easily turn that question around by saying that you cannot prove that there is a God. So,
well, that's actually wrong, sir. Because just to take this as an example, if someone were to say that there is no gold in Alaska. Okay, if someone were to make the statement that there is no gold in Alaska, which is a universal negative, one must, in order to prove that statement, someone would have to go to Alaska, cover every single inch of every single grain of sand, and count every single grain and every single thing in Alaska to say that there's no gold in Alaska.
Analysis of every molecule that's in there, because if you go all the way down to the molecular level, yes, I agree with that.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you're trying to prove that there's no gold in Alaska, you'd have to go through every grain of sand. But if one wanted to prove that there is gold in Alaska, all they'd have to do is go to one spot and one piece of ground in Alaska and find one little fragment of gold, and that would be proven.
You can do that and find that one piece of gold and prove that person wrong. That is something that is not only possible but probable. Can you find one little piece of a God, which is not at all probable, but is somewhat possible? Sure, we'll give you that. But probable? Can you find a piece of God? Can you find any God? Can you find any proof at all? Well, we go with what's been found, and the answer is no.
But what the problem is then, sir, is to go back to the Alaska analogy, is that you just admitted that you only know 1% of the knowledge to be known in the universe. And so by that, there's 99% that you don't know. So therefore, could God live on Pluto? Have you ever been to Pluto? And that's kind of a ridiculous question. No. That's kind of a ridiculous question, admittedly, but what I'm saying is that it's impossible for you to declaratively say that you know that there is no God, to make that universally negative statement that there is no God, whenever you only know such a small, tiny fragment of the information. Admittedly, you only know a small, tiny fragment of the information.
We don't generally say there is no God out. We don't generally make that universal, blatant statement.
Well,
what we generally say is there's no God been found. And there's no God been found.
So then you would have to be an agnostic then, sir. An atheist says that there is no God, right? I mean, do you not know, or go ahead.
It depends on your definition of God. We actually don't use the word God. We say that there is no supernatural being out there that, and then you as them put the word God.
But that doesn't change. That doesn't change the situation, sir.
Yes, it does. Like I said, it could easily turn the question around to you to prove God.
No,
and you have the floor right now. You have the floor.
Right. You have the burden of that, by the way.
No, sir, that's absolutely incorrect, because if just like what you think about this, sir, if you say that there is no gold in Alaska, I mean, think about this. And all I would have to do, sir, all I would have to do is go to Alaska and anywhere find one piece of gold to prove what you said is wrong.
But in order, what you've got to do with God. You've got to find a little piece of God, but you haven't done that yet.
Sir, but what I'm saying is that, but as far as your position is concerned, you would have to go and know every inch of Alaska in order to declaratively say that there's no gold in Alaska. Otherwise, you would be wrong. And what I'm saying, the way that relates to the reality, is that you say that there is no God, but you only know 1% of what's to be known in the universe. Therefore, there's 99% that you don't know. So how can you declaratively say that anything's so when you know so little, sir? I mean, aren't you an agnostic instead of an atheist?
No.
Okay. Let me address that just as quickly as I can. What you've just told us in a very positive way, I think, is an excellent defense of the agnostic position. You can't know everything, therefore.
But aren't you atheist, sir?
Hey, am I atheist? Yes, I am.
Let me finish this point.
Okay, yes, sir.
But in our lives, we tend to take positions. We don't know everything, but some things we know much better than others, and some things we are convinced of. And I'm convinced there's no God.
But
so I would be inaccurate about myself if I said that I was an agnostic, because frankly, for me, inside my head, there's no doubt.
Well, but
I don't have any doubt.
But sir, by your own admission here on this telephone call, you're saying that you're basing that belief that you know there's no God on the only 1% of the knowledge that there is to be known.
That's all I have. I'm going by my own experience.
Right.
And, and also by the fact that all my experience and all science tends to point to consistent natural law. And that pretty much precludes all the kind of things that build up to God. I mean, spirits, souls, afterlife, all the kind of stuff that maybe comes from folk tales or whatever. I think it's perfectly reasonable to reject it all.
But sir, you have to admit that you're basing that decision you've made of knowing on the fact that you don't know 99% of what there is to know. So, by your own admission, you're taking the smallest piece of information which you could possibly have and saying by virtue of that small piece of information, the much larger what you don't know, it's by that you're making your decision of knowing everything.
Okay.
It's not knowing what you claim to be the basis of your knowing, sir.
But that is still more knowledge and more information than what you're basing what a God. Are you telling me there is a God out there?
What?
Are you trying to tell me that there is a God out there?
Yes, sir. I'm a Christian, and
you're basing it on what information?
I'd like to debate you on this point if we could do that.
We'd love to have you on.
Okay. Could I get a number or something to?
Our web address.
Tell you what. Stay on the line, and my producer Kellen will get back with you, and and if you're up for it, we would gladly have you in here as a guest.
Yeah, there's a gentleman named Larry Wessels. Have you ever heard of him?
No, he's from Austin.
Yeah, he's from Austin. He's a gentleman who's a great warrior, in my opinion, as far as discussing atheists and agnosticism and defending the Christian faith. Really,
we would gladly welcome
that would be
debate.
Excellent.
Yes,
I would love to see Mr. Wessels up on the stage with you guys.
Okay, tell you what, stay on the line, and Kellen, our producer, will get with you.
Okay.
Thank you for calling.
Keep in mind that little 1% there, at the base, to say you declaratively don't know on the 1%, that leaving the 99%, there could be a tremendous body of information you haven't even considered, in your position.
And the same goes for you.
Well, it's different. All I need is that one nugget of gold. You have to search every grain of sand in Alaska to tell me there's no gold in Alaska. So all I need to do is go there and find one little
analogy, and you keep referring to it.
It's not a good analogy at all.
That is a good analogy. If you were to think about it.
Talk to our producer.
If you say there is no God, then you would have to go to every planet in the solar system, every place in the universe to say that God doesn't live on Pluto, that He doesn't live underneath the rings of Saturn.
We've already got the burden of proof on you.
But all I would have to do is go to Venezuela and find God if He lived there. Don't you see the difference? That you would have to know everything.
Our producer would love to talk to you now about
your opinions.
So
that's because you can't defend it, sir. Go ahead.
We have another call.
Mr. Wessels would destroy you.
We only have 3 minutes.
Okay.
We're glad to meet him. Yes.
You're right, sir. Thank you very much for the call, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next caller?